So do you guys
So
want to talk about how the Olympics are BS or how the FBI tried to set up another dude to do a mass shooting?
I haven't watched any of the Olympic trials. Well,
I
I
watched
take
the
that back.
swimming.
I think I watched a couple of minutes. Yeah, the swimming was on, and I checked it out. But I don't know
I,
who's good. I don't know, like who. I
well, I
didn't watch
came to the
anything.
conclusion that the Olympics are kind of BS, man, for a few reasons. Number one is it's billions and billions of dollars they rake in for the Olympics, and in the off years too, because there's the Winter Olympics. It's all managed by the same Olympic committee, right? Do the athletes get paid anything? No, they don't. Not a cent. Only if they get some kind of deal after the Olympics. A
I
la
think they're actually
Simone
even
Biles.
taxed on their medals.
They
Yeah,
are.
they tax them
Well,
on
in
their
the
medal.
U.S. they are. In the
Yeah.
U.S. they are. Which is ridiculous. But another thing is 44% of they did a survey, right? The WADA or some doping committee did a survey of Olympians on this anonymous survey, and the survey came back that 44% admitted using something that was banned on the list during the Olympics. Something 44%, and the other 56%, probably half of them were
Lied.
lying.
They
Yeah.
lied.
So I was like, this is ridiculous, and which leads me to I was listening to a thing on concurrently with the Olympics. There's going to be a show put on called the Enhanced Olympics, where, and I think we've talked about this before, where you can use anything you want.
Freak show, baby.
They're going to be monitored and everything to make sure no one's going to die. Because you can't take so much EPO that your blood turns into Mrs. Butterworth's maple syrup. You'll die. Your heart will explode. But I am all for it. Put it to you that way. We've talked about Barry Bonds before. All this stuff. I know he never got caught, but if you're using something that's banned, yeah, you're a cheater, right? But
Sure.
I'm not against using if you're not being tested, and they say you can, jack yourself up in the off season, and you're not being tested. What's the problem with that? I don't see that as cheating. But in the Enhanced Olympics, I'm anxious to see how it goes. And if it's pay-per-view, I will watch some events. I will, because it's going to be insane, I think. Whatever.
Yeah, but have you guys gone through the prohibited list?
Oh yeah, yes, and it's not even
There's-
illegal; it's banned.
And there's so many things on there that you're like, well, damn, dude, all you can really have is water. And if you drink the wrong water, it's like, oh, that's flavored water. Oh, that has something on the ban list, some arbitrary small, flavoring additive. Oh, by the way, that's banned, and now you're disqualified. I think the ban, dude, go and take a look at the ban list. There's, I think, a couple thousand things on there.
Oh yeah,
Cocaine is banned, really?
That are banned.
Well, it's something like levels of caffeine, right? If you had 3 cups of coffee before your event and you peed afterwards, you're going to pop hot for too much caffeine. And it's like, come on, man.
I personally think it's ridiculous. They went way overboard with it.
Yeah,
but I'm with you. I think during the off season, if it's banned in competition, okay, fine, it's banned in competition. But during the off season, if you're not testing for it, and they say, okay, well, during the off season we don't care, then hey, man, whatever.
Well,
as Roger says, go get you some black tar heroin.
Well, here's the thing. It's like, look, performance enhancing. What does that actually mean? Okay, is it a substance, or is it like, for instance, if you have an Olympic biathlete, the ones that shoot, the guns, or maybe archery or something where vision is extremely important. What if you went and got, some sort of surgery that gave you 20/10 vision, or what if you went and got the corneal surgery and it gave you better vision? That's performance enhancing. Sleeping in a hyperbaric chamber, training at higher altitudes, that's performance enhancing. Some countries can't do that. So it's like, whatever, man. I am not against performance enhancing drugs in sports. I'm not against it, because it makes the sport better. Look at baseball.
Well, oh, good Lord. Well, everybody will be pleased to know that beta blockers are prohibited in competition in darts.
Well, that makes sense.
I legit didn't even know darts was an Olympic sport because, well, I don't consider darts a sport.
Archery and
Honestly.
shooting. Archery and shooting.
I'm good with
Well-
those being Olympic sports. Darts? No.
Well, no, I'm
Wait,
saying the
they-
beta blockers. They're only
Oh, yeah,
banned
yeah,
in
yeah.
darts, archery, and shooting.
You know
I
that
didn't know
almost
It's
you know almost
ridiculous.
every orchestra, like the New York Symphony, Chicago Symphony, all that stuff, almost every one of those performers is on beta blockers during the performance. Almost every single one of them.
Really?
Oh yeah. Have you ever taken a beta blocker?
No.
You don't get nervous. You don't get nervous. That's
Oh.
you don't get the adrenaline that causes you to shake. You know you're in the moment.
Ah.
It doesn't mess with your head. It messes with your adrenal system to where, you know, you get the shakes, you get nervous, you know, or
Yeah.
maybe you start thumping your leg. Beta blockers stop that.
So let me ask you this. All right. And you brought up a good point, basically define performance enhancing. So I got the stellate ganglion block, right before I retired. And, that numbs your fight or flight nerve and it kind of resets your headspace a little bit so you can focus on other issues. And so right before I retired, I went and had it done. And I'm a huge fan of it. Right. They stick that big ass needle in your neck and, tap that. I forget the name of the nerve. But it calms you down, man. It peters from Office Space, you right? And so would that be performance enhancing?
Depends on the sport, I guess.
Huh. I said,
I mean,
If
right?
you're in archery or shooting.
yeah, no,
Yeah.
dude, it takes away your fight or flight nerve. It calms you out. Like it Z's you out. You don't get excited, nervous about anything. But you're still in the moment. You're like you said, but it's,
Yeah.
you don't get,
It's
you
like
don't get mad. You don't get angry. You're just like even keel, Peter afterwards, like, the hypnotist drops on the floor with his heart attack and he just sits there like, man, I'm good.
You know what that might be good in? It sounds like it's counterintuitive. Is something like wrestling or boxing. Because they always say don't ever get angry in a fight. Mike Tyson is their rare exception. Don't get angry.
Yeah.
Don't get shaken. Don't get rattled. Just
Yeah.
stick to your game plan. Of wrestling, I would say don't get mad, dude. You're gonna screw
That's a
up
good
if you
point.
get. I don't know, man. That's a good. Wow, huh? Maybe I.
Well,
should
here's
get
a
that
better
surgery
question.
done.
Why would you limit the levels of THC in competition? I mean, to me, that doesn't seem performance enhancing to me. Like, dude, if we're running track and field, I want Luke and Josh to be high as fuck.
Well,
Right?
dude. Yeah, I mean, I think Nate Diaz, UFC fighter, he went in and fought and won, and he went and did the piss test afterwards, and that dude had so much marijuana. It's like he must have smoked like Snoop Dogg size spliffs right before the match. He was stoned as hell, and he still
In
won.
between the rounds, took a hit.
He's in his locker room right before he comes out with a big old doobie.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know. Some people can handle it, I guess. There was one dude, Darren will know who I'm talking about. This guy, Kirk Hill. I don't care if I use his name. He used to train. He's a cyclist, right? He's pretty good, I guess. In the off season, he would get on the trainer inside the house, so it's too cold to ride outside. He would get stoned out of his gourd and just blast out, 100 miles just on that trainer. And I've heard other people say, if you get stoned, you get hyper focused on your workout, right? I don't know. I don't know if that's true. Maybe I should try it.
Maybe cycling or something. I just imagine like weightlifting or something like that. That's probably pretty dangerous, right? I would think. Maybe.
I don't know. Never worked out stoned.
Yeah, dude, I never got the whole animosity everybody had toward Lance Armstrong for the doping thing.
Because he was a bitch.
He didn't put. Well, I mean, yeah. Other than that, dude. But I mean, I don't see where it's wrong because all you did, you turn around, and you put your own blood, you took your own blood out, and you put your own blood back in.
I
Well,
have a term for that. Doping.
well, we
I know,
talked
but
about,
is there? I mean, what's performance enhancing about it?
we
Right,
talked
it's your
about
natural.
it
it's your
is.
blood.
You're giving yourself an advantage, but we talked about Armstrong before, but I think the bottom line is this. I'll say it again. I've said it like 4 times on this podcast. It's like my problem with Armstrong wasn't so much that he doped, because everybody who finished in the top half of the field was doping, and that is a
Yes.
fact.
Yep.
That is a fact. So if everyone was clean, he still would have won. He still would have won. I'm convinced of that. Now, my problem with him is he decided to be a bully bitch about it when
Right.
it all came out. The people who were accusing him and all this stuff, and he was always an ass anyway. He could have spun this into something. He'd be bigger than Magic Johnson right now. He'd be bigger than George Foreman with a George Foreman grill. He could have said, look, I know what I did was wrong, but here's the deal. And he could have repeated what I said. Over half the field was doping. I still would have won if I was clean. I made a mistake, but I'm here to be an advocate for a clean sport. He could have done that. But he didn't. And he ruined his legacy far beyond what it could have been anyway.
Yeah.
So that's my problem with him. He's just an arrogant ass, and he always has been. Sorry, Darren. I know he's still one of your heroes, but he could have handled that differently. The next time you talk to Lance Armstrong, Darren, tell him, hey, bro, you could have handled this differently.
I don't understand why any of them, though, like the whole thing with Lance Armstrong, like it's the same thing with Brett. So in my opinion, even though he's an asshole as well, I mean, there's something that continues to, there's some relevance there, but, or correlation. If I didn't test positive, we're not having that conversation, period. The one good thing, I mean, outside of Barry Bonds being an asshole, because if he wasn't an asshole, if he was like an actual nice guy, because he's kept his mouth shut about it, it's like, people forget, they go on. But the thing is, people hate Barry Bonds, right? And they hate him to the point where it doesn't matter what he says, he's guilty, and they're going to, keep him out of the Hall of Fame or whatever. Yeah, Lance didn't test positive. And that's my point. It's like, you've gone all these years, you've never tested positive. So one, if we haven't tested positive, there's no interview about it. Hey, you know what? We'll talk about it. You can interview me when you have a positive test on me. Otherwise, shut the hell up. Right? That's it. But it's the constant, I'm clean. And then finally at the, years later, and I think maybe something was getting ready to drop.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, I don't know, but like, why all of a sudden you go that many years and all of a sudden, yeah, I took it. It's right up there with Mark McGwire. I'm not here to talk about the past. Actually, the rest of us are here to talk about the past.
That's exactly what we're here to talk about.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just the, hey man, you know what? If you, I don't care what you find in my locker. I don't care what you find in my gym bag or who I'm hanging out with. If you don't have a positive test on me, we're just not having this conversation. Because if otherwise, why even test? Again, we've argued this point till we're blue in the face, but that's my point with it, man. Admit nothing. Exactly.
Admit nothing. What's the second one? Admit nothing. There's something else. Then deny everything. Make
counter accusations. Yeah, you know what? You know a lot about blood doping. You know how you know a lot about blood doping? Because you blood dope.
You do it. How do you know so much about it?
That's the that's the OJ defense. But like, we believe you killed your wife and that poor waiter. It's like, well, your cop is racist.
Yeah.
Right. And that's exactly, that's exactly how OJ got off. And then did he write, I love it, his book, If I Did It. So, well, that's like the Liver King. I think it comes down to, a lot of it comes down to the,
He's
for
back
years,
on it.
It was, I'm clean. This is how you do it naturally. And then, it comes out, it's like, no, you weren't natural. That guy was on more chemicals than Whitney Houston. And turns around and he's like, I'm clean. But then I think he's back on it. And that was the thing. It was a big thing with Bonds and McGwire and Palmeiro and everybody. Sammy Sosa. It's like, bro, everybody knew you were not clean. Like, positive test or not, everybody knew you were not clean. So, well, whatever.
Like, if you look at like the greatest happiness principle, right? Everybody gets mad because they feel like they were cheated. If somebody else cheated, they feel like they were cheated. But let's take Liver King, the baseball big hitters, and Lance Armstrong, right? In the case of Liver King, right, he was lying about being on that stuff. And he was like, you need to eat this and that. I'm sure a lot of people out there probably benefited from that. They didn't get big.
He was lying and he was making money off of his supplements, though. That's my problem.
But people got... I'm just devil's advocate kind of thing. I'm sure there are people out there that got healthy over that, healthier. They found some inspiration, whatever. With the big hitters, right, in baseball, McGwire, Sosa, Bonds, right? A lot of people argue they saved the sport because it was hurting before, that home run, at least according to the 30 for 30s I've seen, Baseball was really hurting before, they went on that the streak, where they're breaking the record. And then in the case of Lance Armstrong, he brought awareness, not only of cycling, but he brought a lot of cancer awareness, and he did a lot of good things, for cancer research and awareness, and self exams for men and all this stuff. Like the Live Strong organization did a lot of good. So it's like, I guess, Roger brought up a good point. It's like, if they made money off of lying, okay, especially Liver King, it's like, I don't get like this from steroids. I get it from my supplements. Okay, that's kind of BS. But the others, it's like some good was wrought of that, So Mark McGwire probably, or one of those guys probably motivated some kid to take up baseball. And, they will never admit it now in the major leagues. But maybe that's the reason they got in, because they were so inspired. I'm just saying good can come of it.
I mean, well, Liver King, like you said, Liver King probably inspired some people to go start lifting weights, but he didn't do it honestly. It's the same thing with McGwire and Bonds and them.
Did McGwire ever admit? I mean, I know he was taking andro. Did he actually ever admit to taking roids?
Like not that I know of. Not that I know of. He may have, but not that I know of. Palmeiro basically got up there along with Sammy Sosa and was like, Mr. Sosa, Mr. Palmeiro. They were like, "Oh, no hablo inglés."
That was awesome. That was hilarious.
Straight up, it was like O'Hanty with his his gambling, his betting on Major League Baseball games. He was like, "Oh, dude, that was all my linguist. I don't know what my linguist is doing." He was talking he was talking English to that bookie, and I don't speak English, so I don't know what he was saying to that bookie. So
man, Mark McGwire and those dudes, especially Mark McGwire, he ruined a real gravy train that was going on back in those years. I want to say it was like 2000. For me, it was like 2004 to like 2007, 8, 9, where there were supplements you could buy at GNC, androstenedione, Nor 19, Norandrostenedione 19, and then there was another one, and then there was one that would balance your hormones, so like it was an estrogen blocker. Right over the counter. It's like one molecule away from being a straight up steroid. I did my research. It was legal. It wasn't banned for the Army. And man, I was on that to the gills, and brother, that stuff worked, and it worked well until Mark McGwire starts talking about his androstenedione, and now all of a sudden the FDA's on it, and it's still not scheduled, but it's illegal to produce it. So when FDA made that ruling as of January 1st, 2009 or whatever it was, you will know no one can manufacture this anymore. I went out and stocked up, bought as much as I could afford, and it lasted me like 2 or 3 years. And I was like, damn, that gravy train dried up.
But do they have any studies like and I haven't looked into it in a long time, but what I'd read at the time with andro was like precursor, but there still was a lot of studies missing from like a direct link. And I think that's what bothers me with a lot of this stuff, because a lot of this stuff, as far as like producing your body producing growth hormone. And so a lot of this stuff gets banned, not just by the military, but, WADA and US 88, that type of stuff, because they say, well, it's a precursor. Well, okay, precursor doesn't mean a lot. Just because you have a lot of coal doesn't mean that they're all going to turn to diamonds, right? There's a lot of other things that got to happen there. And so I think with andro, it seems to, and you may have better info than I do, it seems like andro, there was a lot of like, yeah, it's a precursor, but we still haven't made the connection that it actually translates over to increased growth hormone.
There wasn't enough study on it. I mean, There wasn't enough clinical study on it. I mean, if you look at how it interacts in the body, it works. It doesn't work as well as like straight up anabolic steroids, because the body has to take it within the liver. The body has to take an extra step to convert that to straight testosterone, or the testosterone derivatives like DECA or whatever. So it's less efficient, and it's actually harder on the body because your liver's got to deal with that. But it did work, but they didn't study it enough. Like you said, there wasn't enough clinical study of it to make that straight up determination. On paper, it's like, yeah, this stuff works. But the way the FDA works is if there's not enough clinical studies, like it doesn't work. Because there's not, we don't know. We can't say that this will do what it's advertised to do, right? Which is, promote muscle growth. But at the same time, they'll ban it because they know it works. They just haven't done enough study on it. And I don't know. I never had any negative side effects from it. Um, never. I mean, I was fine.
One thing I've learned about you, Luke, over the course of us doing this podcast, for several years now, you've put a lot of shit in your body.
Well, yeah. I mean, like, I wouldn't say it's all bad though. I mean, y'all see me putting stuff in my body, during this podcast, but yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm always willing to try something, I guess. Especially
Well, I mean,
if,
look at
go
when you
ahead.
look at like what you're talking about back in the 2000s, even before then, right? Back in the late 90s. I mean, look how much Rip Fuel,
Oh,
ephedra, ephedrine.
Dude. Oh,
I mean, dude,
dude.
Rip Fuel was like straight methamphetamines at the time. Like you
Yeah,
were literally on meth for like 4 years.
I
that
remember.
go ahead.
No, I was gonna say I remember a couple of stories coming out where guys were like dying in halfway through their 2 mile run because they
Hmm.
had they jammed down a couple of Rip Fuel right before they knocked out their PT test, and dude, it was exploding people's hearts.
So that truck stop ephedrine, remember that? Where
Yep.
Yep.
they had, I would take that. I don't. I skip right over the Rip Fuel because I'll just take this with a couple of cups of coffee. It's the same thing as Rip Fuel, but that's a great analogy. So that ephedrine, which you can't get anymore because it's a precursor to meth, basically your body converts that to amphetamine in in your liver, right?
It was so
So
great.
so that's perfect analogy to the androstenedione. Perfect. Now it's not as strong as meth, but you kind of get the same results, right? Androstenedione is to ephedrine what, whatever. So that's a great analogy. Yeah, I took a lot of ephedrine, man, over the years until you couldn't get it anymore. Now I don't mess with that stuff. I take my pre-workout, but that's the closest I
Well, that's
come.
why
But
I
man,
wish they'd have done. I mean, they stopped doing stuff, or I haven't seen studies on it because I look at it this way. Like, dude, how many years were we on that stuff? I mean, it had to
oh,
be
years.
right, like half a decade at least.
Let me
I
tell
mean, I know
you,
they changed it a couple times, and then they started putting the NOS and the No Explode, and then you had the Jack 3D. So I mean, they
Jack
just changed
D.
it, right? So it's like at
yeah.
least, dude, it's got to be like a full decade we were on this stuff.
Well, the first time when you talk about me putting stuff in my body and whatever, one negative effect I did have, I was freaking, how old was I? 17, 18 years old. I was doing a biathlon in Phoenix, Roger, and is a run bike, bike run. Actually, you do the bike, you get off, you run. There's not enough water in Phoenix to do a triathlon. So it was a biathlon. And I had this great idea. I was with my dad. I had this great idea. I'm going to do the bike. That's my strongest. And as I'm coming into the transition area, I'm going to pop 2 ephedrine pills. So it'll give me a boost on the run. Being in Phoenix, it's in the morning, now it's getting about 9:30. It's starting to heat up a little bit. I knock out the run. I did okay. Uh, and then when I got to the finish, I walked into this field and passed out. Just passed out. I don't know how long I was passed out, probably a few minutes. Nobody checked on me. My dad hadn't finished yet. And I woke up and I was like, whew, I better not do that again. So my mom's having a heart attack listening to this, I guarantee it.
She's like, "Oh my god!"
but yeah, I try to be, I am responsible, with it for the most part. In college, not so much, but I do my research. I look it up. I don't take
Well, back then,
unnecessary risks.
you didn't have a lot of the research. I mean, back then the internet had just come around. None of this stuff was online. So all you knew is that your buddies took it and it's like, yeah, sure, man. You just pop it. I mean, unless like you were into like, the journals of science and health or something like that, you had no idea what any of that stuff did.
Yeah.
You just took it and I knew it made me jacked, at least energy wise.
Luke was in the bathroom at his local gym. Some guys were like, "Bro, just take this needle, man. Just take this needle, put it in your butt. You'll be good."
There is a story about that.
I have no doubt.
It wasn't a bathroom, but a friend of mine and I, let's dissect Luke's, all his peccadillos and how he's all screwed up. We've talked about it before. We grew up and our heroes were Sylvester Stallone, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Jean-Claude Van Damme, and now it's a little different. I'm glad to see some Chris Hemsworths coming back, where it was these strong, powerful dudes, right? And it's like that's what a man is. That's an action hero. We all want to be action heroes. So I was abnormally skinny in high school. I did a lot of cardio type events, but I always wanted to be bigger. To this day, I want to be bigger, right? And it's deep seated. So in college, a buddy of mine and I were working out quite a bit, and we got a line on a guy who had steroids in Amarillo. He had steroids. And yes, I have disclosed this on my SF86. And that's a funny story too, when I admitted it to the CI guy at Fort Leonard Wood. So anyway, we contacted this dude. We went to the gym and we said, "Hey man, so-and-so told us to come over here." The guy goes, he looks at us and he just walks away. And he comes back like 15 minutes later. We're like, "What just happened?" He went and made a phone call because he's like, "Who are these guys I don't know coming and asking me for steroids?" Right? So he was actually a pretty good salesman, because he goes, "Okay, come back next week and I'll give you like 6 cc's or whatever for $25 a piece," or whatever it was. And so we go back to the gym. He goes, "Okay, follow me." We went to his apartment, which is kind of across the street. This dude was jacked. And so he brings us in. He brings out this bottle, big bottle, and he pulls out each cc at a time. He lays them down, because there's one, and we're just talking. He lays them all down. He goes, "Okay, I do this with all my clients just to show you that it's all good." So he takes it, pulls it down the back of his pants, and gives himself a shot of the same stuff he pulled out of that bottle, just to say my product's legit. So come to find out, the next time we went back to him a month and a half later, it's like, "Man, that worked pretty good. Let's get some more." He said, "Hey man, I'm gonna give you the real stuff this time." And I was like, "The real stuff? What did you inject into your body? What have we been putting in?" He goes, "Well, I only do a half dose. I put half Sustodon in there, and then the rest I put oil, like just straight up oil, because you can inject oil, like cooking oil, into your body. It's not going to do anything, right? It just, your body just absorbs it." He goes, "But I do that with the clients the first time just to make sure they're on the level." And we were like, "What the fuck?" We were like, "Did we get a discount?"
So hold on. Whoa. So you meet some dude at the gym.
I knew this.
And the
guy.
next thing
the
next thing you're in his apartment and he's pulling his pants down to inject cooking oil into his ass.
No, half cooking oil, half Sustodon.
So you were very trusting. You were very trusting as a young adult.
Well, it's Amarillo, so I knew this dude. I'm not going to say too much more about that. I knew who this guy was, and he was actually a good dude. But
shoot.
Yeah, but yeah, that was my dabbling.
That's how people end up missing kidneys and stuff, right? And waking up in bathtubs with ice and all that shit.
It's just, Roger, though, going back to that, and I'll stop talking about it after this, but the results were there, kind of. We did get more ripped, put on a little bit of size. I put on a few pounds, like weight pounds as strength that'll never come off, ever. Well, until I start, deteriorating from old age. But we didn't get big and big. And the reason we didn't get big is because, number one, we weren't working out right. We were working out hard, but we weren't working out right to get big. We were doing a ton of reps and just, if I can get 15 this time, right? We weren't lifting heavy enough, number one. And number two, we weren't eating enough. So I got more it was actually when I went to the Det. And I started working out with some of those guys. I wasn't on anything, but we lifted heavy and I ate a ton of red meat. I got better results from that than I ever got from using testosterone. So I'm just saying, lift heavy, eat a lot of protein, you'll put on muscle, especially if you're young. So that was fun.
That's one of those, you start telling the story like, okay, I got to find a way out of this thing. And you know what? I mean, I tell my boy all the time, because my boy, he's 22, and it's funny because he got his new job and he's working or whatever. And the folks that he works with, they don't lift. And so I tell him, well, there's the man's rule that if you can't bench 225 or you can't bench more than me, then you're really not in charge of me. So you just tell your boss that when he talks, tells you to do it. It's like, dude, you can't bench 225. So, whatever. But anyway, I tell my boy that now. It's just like, and he's all natural. The only thing he takes is like what I buy at the house, some protein powder and, pre-workout BCAAs or whatever. But it's it's that need to want to get jacked, dude, to be big. And, and part of me is like, good. Cause you want to, there's a survival piece to that as well. But I told him, it's like, hey, I'm a firm believer. And part of it, cause with our backgrounds, right, we haven't been able to use drugs and that type of stuff while we're especially in our adults and, adult age and military career and that type of stuff. But, even now I tell them like, I think I'm maybe not beyond it, but I'm a firm believer. Like if you have a true family doctor, right? I'm a firm believer in getting blood tests. And I think we've talked about this before where the doc's saying, hey, you know what? You need to go in a couple cycles. Let's come up with a regimen for you over the next 6 months, 8 months, whatever. Let's get you in a couple cycles. Let's get you to where we can back you up about 10 years, whatever, and then let you go gracefully. And then who knows, maybe look at it again another 10, 15 years, whatever the case is. The thing is, though, is you don't have any doctors that will do any of that stuff. I mean, nightly, I sit here and try to convince my daughter to write me scripts for it. I'm actually, I told her I'm going to compile a list from all my, I'm just kidding if the DEA is listening, but it's, point being, you don't have any medical professionals out there. They would much rather treat your injury with Oxy or something like that than they would, hey, you know what? I'm 48, 49 years old. I'm getting a little slower. I'm getting a little, a little pudge around the gut. I think there is something to be said for the longevity, right?
Mm-hmm.
For being slimmer, in shape, that type of stuff. Like, hey, let's talk about some of this stuff, legal use of it, monitored, draw my blood. I don't mind coming in every other week or whatever it takes, but they won't even have the conversation with you about it.
And part of that, I'm sorry, Josh, I know you want to talk, but part of that is it's not covered by insurance. Someday insurance will get on this train. I've encouraged my dad. It's like, go in, see if you can go to a hormone doctor and get yourself just low dose testosterone, man. Because it's not going to do any harm. I'm going to tell you that. But I think it goes back to baseball and Lyle Alzado, who didn't die from steroids, by the way, and just the dark, the bugaboo about testosterone and anabolic steroids. But man, someday the insurance companies are going to get on this train, and it will be covered by insurance past a certain age because it's longevity. I mean, if you're taking low dose, there are no side effects, and there are very, very, very few side effects, and it happens to a very small portion of the population. Women, another story. Fortunately, we have a good what do you call your main doctor? What's that called? Your
primary care.
Primary care. So the doctor, he's really good, and he's got a lot of good nurses who work for him. And the nurse who usually checks us out is a real believer in endocrinology. Let's get your hormones balanced out. But again, it's like if he says, hey, you need testosterone or, whatever, it's not covered by insurance. You got to pay out of pocket. And it's like, dude, I told y'all, I do TRT. It makes me feel better. I got no side effects. It's great. It makes me feel good. It's low dose, but man, I feel a lot better. So I don't know, dude. Someday they'll get on board with it, but the whole bugaboo, ooh, bad. Just like heroin, man. Someday black tar heroin is, it's gonna people are gonna see the benefits.
Oregon tried that. They're now backtracking. They're like, oh yeah,
I saw that.
That was a bad idea. No, so I don't think insurance companies ever will, because the government does not want you to have longevity. The government does not want you living longer.
Only if you're working.
Unless you're working. Yeah, if you're working, they're like, yeah, pump that dude full of TRT, right? And have him keep paying taxes. But I think most folks who are retired, and especially if you're going to be, if you're on Medicare, Medicaid, and you're retired, drawing Social Security, they're like, don't let that fool live any longer than they can.
What do you think about Ozempic, Josh? Like this Ozempic craze? Because I think it's pretty obvious that it works, right? The side effects, we have long-term side effects we have yet to see. But what do you think about that, dude? Because we all know that obesity and the type 2 is a scourge. What do you think about that?
So I don't know a lot about it.
So why are you putting it in your body then?
In general, because I'm like you, man.
I'm joking.
I'll put anything in my body. Yeah. Like Gavin Newsom, Gavin Newsom puts anything in his body. I mean, mostly men, but the Ozempic thing. The Ozempic thing. Here's the thing. Hey, Ozempic does not affect anybody except for the person taking it. All right, it doesn't. It doesn't affect anybody aside from a woman who might be pregnant, we don't know what those long-term effects may be on the on the baby. But if you have somebody who is obese and they're like, you know what, I'm just going to take Ozempic, to get my weight down, go knock yourself out. At the end of the day, I don't know that Ozempic's going to be any worse than the type 1, type 2, and the type 3 diabetes that you're going to get from being, morbidly obese. So, it's pick your poison on that. And when I say type 3 diabetes, I mean dementia and Alzheimer's, because that's what they are. They're that's type 3 diabetes.
So is it a magic pill? I mean, is that it? It's like, oh, just take this and you won't be obese anymore and you won't have to, I don't know. I'm just suspicious.
Again, I don't know enough about it. I see the memes and I see, some of the, the advertisements, but I mean, I would prefer people do it naturally, like go get in the gym, just be active. You don't have to go run marathons and stuff like that, but just be active, eat smart meat, make smarter decisions about what you eat. And, I mean, you guys make fun of me all the time for, eating all the time. And, dude, I'm a fat kid, man. I love food, but there's also, I've gotten to that point in my life where it's like, hey man, I can't eat Chick-fil-A every day anymore. I can't have those things that I really enjoy. Like I can't have pizza every day. Like I just can't do it. Now on the weekend, hey man, it's game on, but during the week, I try and eat clean. It's like just I was on the road for the last couple of weeks. And by and large,
impossible to eat.
It was super, super difficult. Luckily, I was in Hawaii to where, fresh fish and stuff was readily available. So, dude, I ate a ton of poke, right? Or poke, or however you say it, whatever. Some people are like, it's poke. But, it's just, I looked at it and it's like, I could have walked down and I could have gotten fast food every single day. And I could have punched that easy button and be like, I'm just going to stop, at, the I forget what's the name of the chicken place out there, Jollibee.
Oh man, they got some good chicken.
Yeah, I was like, I could have stopped there every day, punched the easy button, went through the drive-through, went back to my hotel, and called it a day. But it was like, no, that's crazy, and I can't do that. So,
but the worst
Ozempic thing. What's that?
I said the worst is the three of us have been on the road in a similar situation with Josh, and we'll get donuts in the morning with no intention of eating them. And seriously, with no intention of eating them, because dude, I eat a donut, it tastes good for a second, but I can feel it, right? Same as the three of us. But a lot of times you're in such a hurry, you get the coffee and you skip breakfast, but then you show up with all these donuts in your hand, and it's 8 in the morning. You're like, I ain't gonna eat one of these donuts, and then the stomach starts grumbling at about 10:30, and you're like, those donuts are just sitting there, and inevitably, I will eat at least one donut during that week.
Discipline, brother.
Hey,
discipline.
Did you have a donut? Did you have any donuts at all? Not you, Roger, because I know you're the paragon of self control.
Yeah, I had one.
So you had a donut.
Yeah, and dude, and I, you know what? And as soon as I had it, I felt terrible. I was like, I wanted to kick my own ass.
You should have gone and purged. You should have gone bulimic. That's what we should do. I should try that. So I know a person on Ozempic. Admitted they're on not admitted. Said they're on Ozempic, but this person doesn't need to be on Ozempic, and they're staying on Ozempic. And to me, this person looks like they're wasting away. Legs are getting too skinny. It's like, there's that side of it of, the obese person, drop 120, 150 pounds. That's good. But then you've got these thin people who are taking it. And it's like we're in 1986 again with the after school special about the anorexic girl,
Well, Josh hit it on the head with the working out. And that's so what I've read up on it. We actually have quite a few folks here that are on the GLP-1, and it's, most of the side effects, it seems to be very, I don't want to say local, but it's very, it's there while you're using it. It's not things that carry on. There's no you're not going to develop some type of pancreatic cancer or something like that. Not that I know of. So don't take it for, as gospel, but the big part of what I've read, and I think the Cleveland Clinic put out a study on it just recently, because people that are coming off Ozempic, they put the weight back on. But here's what's interesting about it. So one, I think Josh hit on the head. It's like, hey, do the Ozempic, but there needs to be a holistic approach to this thing. You need to start eating right, eating better. You need to start working out, and then you come off the Ozempic, right? But I think if I remember correctly, with the GLP-1 study they did, they were saying people were putting the weight back on, but they weren't putting 100% of the weight back on. They were putting up to 50% of the weight on. So let's say I'm 300 pounds and I take Ozempic and I get down to 200. I come off of it and I go back up to 250. That's a plus to me. That's the way I see that. Right? But that's not how it's that's a win. That's not how it's being portrayed. And, I think it has something to say with what Josh said, going back to, hey man, there are a lot of folks out there. There are a lot of agencies that don't want you to live longer. Okay. They want you to die earlier. And oh, by the way, and it's not just the government, but when you look at pharmaceuticals and this and that, I mean, I would, and I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, but like when you look at like low dose TRT and a lot of the stuff now, you have generic versions out there. There's not enough money in that.
No, not even close.
Right. We need you to develop something. We need you to get the diabetes. So, I can give you the insulin and all the other stuff. Right.
Well, the interesting thing with the testosterone, I think I've covered this before. It's like you cannot patent a naturally occurring substance. You can't patent vitamin D. Well, testosterone, most hormones are naturally occurring. So there's no money in it for pharmaceutical companies, right? So that's why they try to push this bioidentical stuff. Don't take bioidenticals, folks. If you can avoid it, don't take that. That's engineered in a lab, and I don't believe in it. But with Ozempic, and the semaglutide and stuff like that, that is trademarked. That's not naturally occurring.
Well, so, and the injection, the way they
deliver
it to you, the way you take it, the way you deliver it, that's patented.
Okay. But I don't think that semaglutide, I don't think that's naturally occurring. I don't think. I don't know. I shouldn't say.
Yeah.
But one thing I've noticed with the Jardiance commercials, I see a lot of commercials during the day because I have the TV going, when I'm not in a meeting, I turn the volume up and listen to the propaganda. But there's a lot of Jardiance commercials, and that's semaglutide. And what I've noticed over the past year is when these people dancing around, singing the praises of this Jardiance stuff. When the commercials first started, there's been 3 iterations of them. We're on the 3rd one right now. The first one, the lady was fat.
The fat chick.
The fat one dancing around.
I know exactly where you're going with it.
The lady is a little less fat, right? This 3rd one is a dude who is slightly overweight. He's not obese. Those other 2 were borderline obese. This new guy, he's just slightly
First one was
overweight.
a diabetic, clearly.
Oh, yeah. But I think that's great because pharmaceuticals, they are making a ton of money on this. A ton. Because everybody wants it. So it's like, Josh, what do you think about the evolution of it's for fat people with diabetes down to, no, it's for you too. It's for everyone.
Well, I think I think that is the natural evolution because it's going to come down to, hey, you don't have to go and, move weights around for an hour. You don't have to go and crush endless miles of concrete and asphalt. You can just take this pill. Just take this pill and you get the same results. You can be skinny just by doing this. Right? So I think that will be the natural evolution. But when we talk about, look at cancer, right? Talk about people don't want you to live. All right. And there's been, when we talk about, continuing to find the cure for cancer, I'm telling you right now, there's a lot of people with a lot of money invested that do not want to find a cure for cancer. Because when you look at it, cancer in 2021, oncology expenditures in the United States, $187 billion. All right, $187 billion. That's worldwide, not just in the United States. That's $187 billion industry. Could you imagine if it came out tomorrow and was like, hey, we figured it out. We found a cure for cancer. That's $187 billion right off the top. You think when, again, it's a book, it was fiction, but this guy was like, no, man, I figure out how to, basically, use water as fuel. All right. And it was like, dude, you just use water as fuel. You don't have to have petroleum, no more fossil fuels. No, you don't have to have electric energy, nothing. And of course, it winds up in like this dark, this dark entity, which is, some secret government agency schwacks them and, leaves them out in the middle of the woods to rot. But when you think about it, if you came out tomorrow and was like, I found a cure for cancer and I'm about to destroy $187 billion industry, what do you think is going to happen to you? You're going to wind up like Boeing whistleblowers. All right. There's people out there, there's entities out there that do not want people to be healthy. They do not want you to be skinny because they want you to be sick. They don't want you to live forever because if they can control, they control your health, then they control everything. And the more health problems you have, the more you got to, schlep into the doctor, to get those things taken care of. And that's one of the reasons, like, again, man, you don't have to be Arnold Schwarzenegger. You don't have to be, Sly or anybody like that. It's like, but God, man, get up and be active because a lot of these problems that people complain about, oh, well, I have diabetes or I have this, my knees hurt me. It's like, because you're carrying 3 bills on a 5'6" frame. Like my knees would hurt too. I bet all your joints south of your neck hurt carrying all that weight around. It's like, get up, be active, do something. You don't have to go run a marathon, but God, man, like do something. A lot of your ailments will go away if you drop the weight. It'll happen.
You talking to me or Luke?
Both of you.
Well, and a prime example is this. It reminded me of like, and I was young at the time, as far as teenage years and this and that. So, didn't do a whole lot of reading on it, but look at Magic Johnson with HIV.
Yeah.
You talk about them wanting you to be sick and the money. So, Magic Johnson, who's thriving right now, right? So I had to look it up. He came out and said he was diagnosed in 1991, the early 90s, right? HIV positive. And so I Googled and was like, because he's still kicking today and he looks great and he ain't skinny. The average life expectancy for people with HIV back in the early 90s was 1 to 2 years after diagnosis. And then in the late 90s, they got up to, 10 and a half years. And then by 2005, it had gone to 22 and a half years. Right. Because a lot of these folks, I mean, especially when you look at the community, and it's not, I mean, I know I'm talking about HIV specifically, but it really, I think it comes down to the money, and when you look at the majority of that population that doesn't have the money to spend on, the therapeutics, the medicine, the advanced medicine research, this and that. I mean, there is no way, I don't think. So if Magic Johnson had not had the money that he had, he'd probably be dead today. Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because I guarantee you're going to get me talking about Fauci because I guarantee he never took AZT. I guarantee he didn't. Because AZT was a chemo drug that basically killed you. And it was Fauci's idea because they didn't prescribe it for cancer anymore because it was too toxic. So Fauci's just like, he pulled this whatever. But yeah, I mean, dude, I've read somewhere, it's not reliable, that if Magic Johnson got tested for HIV now, his levels are so low he wouldn't even show as positive.
I think that's very true. I think it's been
I know
and it's been like that for like 10 years, I think.
I know someone very well, who was diagnosed with HIV in the early 2000s. And he is thriving today, same type of thing. Last time I saw him, man, he looked great. He's in shape. Dude eats healthy. I'm sure he's on some kind of cocktail that he has to take to whatever, but he's doing fine. And that was 20 something years ago. It's like, yeah, it's interesting. But man, yeah, you're gonna get me talking about Fauci. Don't do that. Freaking Fauci.
Yeah, in the 80s, man, that was a death sentence.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that was 100% death sentence. I had my open heart surgery in 1983, and they were not screening. I took like 5 units of blood during my surgery, and they were not screening for that in 1983. And I was really lucky not to wind up with it. Especially taking 5 units of blood and
hypergonosyphilis or something.
Yeah. And but yeah, dude, in the 80s, man, once HIV, that was a death sentence. You were done. and it generally happened, like you say, a year or two, generally, and it was more like I want to say it was more like within a year you were gone. With that nowadays, you got the money. Oh man,
So speaking of cocktails, all right, and injections. So Luke, what are they
Uh,
going to mix up for Joe Biden with the upcoming debate, which I think is next Thursday, right? Next Thursday?
yeah, yeah, it is. It's next Thursday, and I can't wait. And I'm going to be on the road, but I'm watching that. That's a must watch, can't miss event for a lot of reasons. But to answer your question, I don't think it's as simple as everyone says. I don't think they're just going to jack him up on a bunch of meth and whatever. I think they've got some kind of cocktail, same one they gave him for the State of the Union, which is I don't think it's just something they inject him with the day of. I think it is a regimen that obviously is starting now, this weekend. I don't know what it is, but I'd love to know what it is. But after that debate, he's going to be out of commission for a little while because you can't jack somebody up like that and expect there to be no fallout. There's going to be a crash. I don't know. I mean, I'm sure it consists of B12, some sort of Adderall, something to counteract the effects of Adderall, like a beta blocker, or possibly a Xanax, something like that, to get you calm because you're jacked up, but you're calm. I'm sure there's some extra blood, right? We're talking about the blood doping. That never hurts. That doesn't hurt anything. So I don't know, but I guarantee it's very scientific. What's going on is very scientific. What they're putting into his body, and we can get into how we think the debate's going to go. But Josh, I mean, you think it's just as simple as they just give him a line of Hunter's Coke, and
Well, let me ask Josh this. Do you think that we have, with him being the president of the United States, do you think that us as the people, as the citizens, have a right to know what he's putting? So there's been a lot of news going on because, Donald Trump came out and was like, I want a drug test and this and that, which we know that's not going to happen. But it does bring up a valid concern. Like, do you think that as our president and as the citizens of this country, that we have a right to know what he's putting in his body?
yes, 100%. And I think that goes for any elected public official. Because, think about it this way. Wouldn't you want to know if your elected official is on some kind of psychotropic medicine? I would, especially if that person, is, walking around with the football. I want to I want to know, are you on SSRIs? Because that may impact my decision when it's time to go to the polls to either put you in office or put you back in that office. So yeah, I think their medical records, I think they should be public. You want to be an elected official? Guess what? That's part of the deal. You want to sit in that position of power? That's part of the deal. So yeah, but I agree with Luke. I think it's not something they're just gonna, they're just not gonna Z him up, an hour before the debate and call it a day. He's getting that regimen now. They're gonna build him up to it, but that guy is going to be juiced to the gills. On something. And I mean, Trump just came out a little while ago and, said that, hey, he's, Joe Biden's a great debater and, he doesn't want to underestimate him.
it's a good move.
I think it's a great move. Because they've set the bar. They have set the bar so low for Joe Biden. Luke, you pointed this out earlier. They set the bar so low for him that as long as that guy doesn't fall down, the people are gonna be like, see how good he did. See, he's still got it. He can mumble his way through that thing. John Fetterman, they're gonna look at dude. He could pull a John Fetterman when he debated Oz, and people are gonna be like, "Oh, he was amazing. He was so good. He was so good." So, yes, I know I said his damn name first. I just figured I'd go ahead and get it out there because I know Roger. I know Roger's got a chubby waiting. He was probably gonna say it, and it kind of deflated that chubby a little bit.
It was already deflated. That's all right. No, and I think I'm with Luke. I literally cannot wait to see this thing. Because I do believe, and again, we've talked about polls and this and that, and one, I don't care about national polls. And I do believe that the Fox polls that were released today, I think that's staged. I truly believe it's staged. I think it's staged to try to keep the fire underneath the Trump campaign, get Republicans out there, turn out the vote, because you start to look like you're 6, 7, 8 points ahead everywhere. People don't show up anymore, right? So it's to keep that grassroots movement going or whatever. But I think this could really truly be make it or break it for Joe. Now, I don't think he has to do a great job. I think the bar has already been set so low, but he needs to show up and he needs to be coherent. Because for everybody, they talk about the cheap fakes and the deep fakes. I thought they actually made up the word cheap fake. I mean, I heard them today explaining it, and they're like, they act like the media, mainstream media, they act like it's the first time that editorials, journalists, satirists, and this that have like taken things out of context or cropped. Dude, we do that stuff all the time here. Everybody's seen our cover art, right? We crop everything, we meme it. It's like, hey, this has been going on for like ever, right? It goes all the way back to the old girlfriend boyfriend you had when you cut the Polaroid in half because you like the picture of the ocean behind you, but not the douchebag that's standing next to you, right? So they act like it's all brand new, but I think for Joe, he doesn't have to do great. His answers don't have to be great, but I think he's got to look coherent and he's got to look like he's there. Because I tell you what, he gets up there and he drops a bomb on this thing. I mean, it could be over. And I've read a couple different pundits on X. They talk about like, hey, KJP and the MSM that's all come out to defend him. If you want to prove the quote unquote cheap fakes wrong, and the deep fakes wrong, which I haven't seen any deep fakes. It's all been cheap fakes or whatever. But you want to prove all that wrong? That's easy. Put Joe out there on the trail. Hey, man, get out there. And you don't even have to go on the trail. Get up there on that podium and love him, like him, hate him, whatever the case is. Donald Trump was always great at this. Get up on that podium, stand there for an hour without a teleprompter, and field questions. Right? That's how you get rid of that.
He's not going to be. Here's one of the issues is even if you let Biden, even if that, hey, all that works out, right? So Biden's standing up, he's no teleprompter, but if Trump's coaches are not coaching him to shut up right now, they're failing him because Trump is going to talk over Biden every chance he gets, and that's what they're hoping for. They're hoping that Biden's going to come out. Biden's probably already been told, hey, get him riled up. Get him riled up right out of the gate because when Trump gets riled up, he can't help himself and he won't shut up. He's going to overtalk him. So when Biden starts mumbling and becoming incoherent, you're not going to pick it up because Trump's going to walk all over him, talking, he's going to call him Sleepy Joe and, all whatever other, nicknames he's come up with. But Trump Biden's team won the coin toss and they get to pick one of two things. They either get to pick podium placement or they get to pick closing arguments to order the closing statements. So they chose podium placement, and so Trump gets the closing comments in the debate.
I think that works out well. I mean, I think that the deck is definitely going to be stacked against Trump no matter what. Okay, even if Trump, yeah, I mean, so you got the muted microphones thing, right? If you're not talking, your microphone's muted. So I was texting the group the other night, but Josh, you were already in bed, and I was like, "What do you bet that they unmute Trump's microphone?" And it's like, well, why would they do that? It's like, well, because like Josh said, Trump can't help himself, and if Joe Biden starts fumbling and bumbling, right, just fumbling, maybe freeze up for half a second, turn Trump's mic on, or even if the mic's not on and Trump starts talking, the moderators can stop right there. Mr. Trump or President Trump, wait your turn, so on and so forth. That gives Joe just a few seconds to get things back together. You're going to see a lot of that, especially with the commercial breaks. I'm very interested to see how long the commercial breaks are. I think that's complete BS, but there are commercial breaks. Also, I don't know. I heard they're only allowed a notepad, pencil, and a thing of water. I have a hard time believing that's all they're going to have on them. But I just think the moderators are going to talk about, January 6th and election, election denial. I think they're going to try to keep it focused on that.
Oh, they're going to talk about his 34 felony convictions.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's another thing for sure. Keep it at that. Don't talk. Yeah. It's just, I don't know. It'll be interesting, because Trump, when we talk about inflation and stuff like that, I heard a pundit talking today about, everybody forgets that, y'all want to make it a 3-year Trump presidency. You always forget about that last year. And, the counterpoint was, yeah, that was COVID. And he's like, doesn't matter. He didn't handle it right, which, yeah, I mean, there are certain aspects that I totally disagree with how he handled it. So that's something he's got to not fess up to, but he's got to handle. He's got to be able to explain that. And he's also got to be able to explain how he, in some ways, contributed to inflation. He did. He absolutely did.
No,
Not as bad as
100%.
Joe, but hey, he blew up the deficit too. He put a lot of money out there. So I don't know. It'll be interesting. We'll see. I hope it's substantive, but I doubt it will be. It'll probably just be a giant popcorn fart. But we'll see. Everybody's just waiting for Joe to fall down or to crap his pants on stage.
Exactly. That's what it is. That's what it is. And I think you brought up a very, very good point. I didn't thought about it till you texted it to the group the other day, where you're going to see or not see. I'm hoping it's fair. I'm hoping it's even. But you already know where the line of questioning is going to go with the convictions and January 6th. We know that's coming up. But I'm curious to see how the microphone thing works. Because, dude, I think you're spot on. I think, when Joe gets in there and he sounds like me or Josh rambling and mumbling, because you did. Moderator comes in, they'll either cut on Trump's mic, right? Or like you said, you give that tactical pause of 4 or 5 seconds. Mr. Trump, right now, the president is speaking. You'll have your turn here in 15 seconds when he's done, right? That's that tactical pause that gives him, okay, let me reset and let me go back to the 3 or 4 canned answers that I have in my head. So I'll be interested to see how that plays out, because I hope it's not like that. And I think we'll see that very early on. But I think this is also 90 minutes, right? So this is a long time for Joe Biden to stand up there. And the good thing with the 90 minutes, and Josh, you hit it on the head with, hey, Donald, and I've heard a lot of the pundits say this. So I think he's actually getting like, just shut up, dude. I think I heard, was one of the pundits, one of the comedians on Fox News. He basically had like 5 lines. He's like, Trump could stick to these 5 lines throughout the whole debate and he would be fine. And he could just repeat them over and over and over again and let Joe defend his record, right? Because not only do you have to be able to defend that record, but you actually have to be coherent enough to be able to continue to defend that record over 90 minutes. And so is he upstairs to be able to memorize all that? Because I think the deal is you can't come in with notes. There's obviously no teleprompter, but you can take live notes while you're talking, while the other candidate's speaking. And so if I'm Donald Trump, you keep the inflation numbers, the economy numbers or economic numbers, the southern border numbers, right? Those are things that you just have at the top of your head. Hunter's laptop. Okay. Not that I care what's on the laptop. Hunter's not running for president, but it's the fact that 51 intelligence professionals and Joe Biden got up there on stage, national television, and called it a lie and called it Russian disinformation. You lied about it. You lied about the laptop. You lied about meeting with any of your son's business associates. You lied about taking any money. You lied about taking pictures with them. You lied about these guys not showing up to the White House. That's what you got to stick to. And you know what? You don't have to get fired up. You say that. What else are you lying about? And you turn it back over to Joe.
But the way I look at the Hunter laptop, Hunter is not running for office, but the son of the current sitting president is compromised by the Chinese Communist Party.
Absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely.
That's a big piece of leverage. Right. And that is not, just a hey, some, 50 intel officials came out and, said that it was Russian, propaganda. It's like the president's son is compromised by the Chinese Communist Party, and the president lied. The big guy lied about being knowledgeable about all that stuff. So when you go back and turn around and you take a look, and I forget which university it was, the connections that Joe had while he was, in between the Obama administration and him, getting elected president, it's like, oh, what's that? Yeah, UPenn. And his little thing that he started at UPenn had ties back to the Chinese Communist Party. Yeah. The Hunter laptop thing, people are real quick to throw out like, well, Hunter's not real running for office. I've seen it on X a lot, like, well, Hunter's not running for office. Like, no, but his dad is, and they're very tied into, and they're both compromised by the Chinese Communist Party, who at the end of the day, and I know the last episode, I was listening to Luke talking about his, one of his agency, colleagues, buddies was like, Russia's the biggest threat. It was like, absolutely not. Anybody who spent more than a day, reading up on this, China is by far our biggest existential threat. And people are going to go to the polls and they're going to, vote for Joe Biden, not understanding or not wanting to understand their cognitive dissonance going to get in the way. That guy is 100% compromised by the Chinese Communist Party, as is his entire family, and he showered with his daughter.
Ew, that's gross. Yeah. It's already shaping up to be an interesting election season, as we all knew it would be. There's going to be a lot to talk about between now and really January. I think a lot's going to happen. The Republican convention is next month in Milwaukee. That'll be interesting. And I was doing some research on Milwaukee job related stuff, looking because there was a whole thing about Trump saying Milwaukee's a horrible city, and again, it was a cheat fake because they took it out of context. He was talking about the crime rate. It was very, very. If you looked at the whole statement, he was talking about the crime rate. A lot of people said that. And I was like, well, I know it's bad in Milwaukee, but is it that bad? And as luck would have it, I had to look into Milwaukee, and man, dude, it has gotten bad just in the last 2-3 years. The crime rate's gone up insane. It's bad, man. Milwaukee is pretty bad. It's up there with St. Louis, man, and DC. I had no idea. Yeah, it's pretty bad, man.
Name a major metropolitan city where it's not bad. I mean,
well, like major. Having a hard time coming up with one, man. I mean,
maybe the one that how's Dallas? Like maybe Dallas.
Dallas,
too much out there.
It's bad, right? But it's not like Milwaukee. San Antonio, same thing. It's bad, but it's not like Milwaukee. Houston is bad. Like there are parts of Houston,
Philadelphia, Chicago,
New Orleans,
Milwaukee,
dude.
St. Louis, New Orleans. I mean,
so
come on.
One thing, interesting little tidbit here. So a lot of times, if you look at the crime rate throughout the day, right? The crime rate throughout the day will generally fall off between about 4:30 in the morning and noon. Okay, it really goes down. In most cities that keep track of that kind of stuff, there's a couple of cities. Well, there's one city in particular where the crime rate is pretty much steady 24 hours. It's New Orleans. There is no safe time of day in certain parts of New Orleans. Josh, I don't know if we want to explain that on the podcast, Josh, what you just put in the chat.
No, keep going on what you were talking about.
Okay.
I've seen it like 100 times in the last day.
I'll tell you offline.
Like, what is this?
I'll tell you offline.
All right.
But anyway, yeah, it's bad. It's bad in Milwaukee. And then the Democratic convention is in Chicago. That one's going to be interesting, especially if Israel invades Lebanon and takes care of Hezbollah. But it's just going to be an interesting season, man. We'll see. And school will be back in session come September. I don't know. Hey, could we change the subject over to what we were discussing in the chat the other day? And Roger brought something up, and I'm like, God, man, he's right. And I don't watch a lot of network television, CBS, NBC, ABC. I don't even Fox. I don't, Fox Network. I don't really watch that much. But Roger goes, what happened to sitcoms? Like, what happened to sitcoms? Are there any sitcoms out there anymore? And I'm like, I don't know. I haven't heard, and we brought up the last ones I remember being big are like How I Met Your Mother and the Big Bang Theory, right? But other than which were, in my opinion, complete garbage. We can talk about that later. But then we got talking about sitcoms. And Josh, I mean, what's your thought on that? Like, where are the sitcoms and why are they not here anymore?
They're not here anymore because of the woke movement. You're not allowed to be funny. It's the same reason comedy died. And the guys out there doing it are only doing it because they can't be canceled. Like, you can't cancel Chappelle. You can't cancel Rogan. They killed him. And when we start talking about, some of the dude, I'm sorry, Friends, Big Bang Theory, terrible, terrible, not even remotely funny. They weren't even remotely good. And people are out here talking about them like they're, it's like, oh man, it's the best, the best one ever. They're dumb. Um, I think, and you say sitcoms, some of these are, some people say those aren't sitcoms, but you start talking like Family Guy and The Simpsons, like the old Simpsons, like those, and like South Park, right? Like those were legit because no one was safe. Those destroyed, those destroyed folks. So you go back to some of the older ones that we talked about, dude, like the Jeffersons.
Mm.
Jeffersons were great. Fresh Prince was good. But when you start talking, man, they really they died off because the woke movement, woke culture killed them. I mean, we had the American Pilots Association is now voting to ban the term cockpit and manpower because they're not inclusive. It's like, that's what happened. That right there, that's what happened to sitcoms.
Roger, did you ever see there was some stuff going around about 3 years ago where they were showing clips of the Big Bang Theory without the laugh track? And you watch it and you're like, this is not only not funny, it's creepy. But with the laugh track on there, and that show was so popular. And I guess, man, this is a sign that maybe I'm getting old because I look at some of the videos like that my kids will watch, and they'll be laughing, they'll just be cracking up, and I'm like, "What's so funny? Let me see it." And they'll show it to me. It's just not funny, right? I mean, I'm a fan of comedy, and I'm just like, "What do you find funny about this?" And I think I keep saying Third Rock from the Sun, but it was the Big Bang Theory. It just wasn't funny, but all these kids thought it was just hilarious. And I don't know. It's just humorless. And then How I Met Your Mother, I thought was slightly funnier. I've seen a couple episodes of that than the Big Bang Theory, but like whatever happened to, I don't know, man. It's tough because in my book, it's all about Cheers, Frasier, The Office, and the old stuff like Barney Miller, WKRP in Cincinnati, the Jeffersons, All in the Family. What was the one with Michael J. Fox? That one came on right after the Cosby Show.
Family Ties.
Family Ties. Remember how good the Cosby Show was back in the day, and then Bill Cosby had to go. But it's like, I mean, and All in the Family is so irreverent. You can't even find that on TV anymore.
Oh no,
dude. No. Oh Lord.
Sanford and Son. Josh hit it on the head. It's what I want to believe, and it's not what I want to believe. What I remember, and I could be, I don't watch sitcoms nowadays. I watch very little, actual TV series or whatever. So I could be speaking, outside of my neck. But Josh hit on the head with everything going woke. One, part of what makes life funny is life, right? And that's, sitcoms at the time, at least I remember growing up, it was very representative of what my life was. Now, it wasn't a 1-for-1 match, but they brought up daily challenges, daily interactions, culture, differences that we went through on a daily basis, right? And it's crazy because I've only watched like one episode of like Big Bang Theory, How You Met Your Mother, The 70 Shows. That all seemed to me to be like lumped together. Like, this isn't reality. This isn't funny. This is like if you were on lithium, right? And were to write a sitcom, this is what you would write. It is very desensitized comedy, right? Go ahead.
Something just occurred to me. You just said it, and it's something, a light went on in my head. Okay, kick it right back to you, but I got to get this out there. You said it with the Big Bang Theory. You said it with another one. It's like, who are these people? You look back at Cheers, The Office, WKRP, Barney Miller, all this stuff. Those are, especially Cheers, those are people right? Like, I know a guy like that. I know a girl like that. There's always somebody like that.
Exactly.
Nowadays, you watch the Big Bang Theory, and you're like, who are these people? I don't know a single person that acts like that. Whatever. It's like Seinfeld. Seinfeld is interesting. What do you think about Seinfeld, Roger?
It's my top three. It's a top three because it's I think the cast of characters. So one, there is a little dry humor there. Whatever, Josh. There's some dry humor there, but the cast of characters that come in, everybody knows somebody like them. It's very representative, and it is truly a show about nothing. It's a show about a lot of topics that don't ever get discussed, but because there's no storyline, they can talk about anything. Now one thing with that show is when you look at Kramer, a lot of these folks became very typecast, and you actually start to like the character itself, even though it's not as representative. But I think when you look at that show versus like the Married with Children, The Office, even like the Sanford Son, those are very representative, man. Cheers, you hit it spot on. Like, I know people like that. You go to The Office, right? The whole point of The Office and how it was put together is everybody who's ever worked in an office environment, dude, you've got a 1-for-1 match, right? Like that this is your Stanley, right? I mean, Josh was our Stanley at the death. So
Roger was Dwight.
But it was very representative of daily life. And you know what? Hey, day-to-day life is very edgy. Right? That's the reality of it. It's very edgy. And that's just human nature. And when we went away from that, it's like, well, hey, man, we got advertisers out there, and we got to make sure that, we're all inclusive. And hey, man, again, you come out with a lithium-induced sitcom that is not funny.
And here's the thing, Josh. It's like, it wasn't my top choice back in the day. You flip on the TV after school or something, or, maybe your parents are letting you watch a little TV and Good Times comes on, or Sanford and Son, or whatever. Those weren't my favorite, but I watched them. Those weren't my favorites, but I watched them. And I guarantee that more, proportionally even, more white people watch Sanford and Son than black people. Same thing with the Jeffersons. Guarantee it. Because it was marketed, even though it's primarily black, it was marketed to everyone. It's like anybody can watch this. You get a little window into how it is, in that type of culture. Everyone was watching it. Not everyone,
same thing
but
with
a
Fresh
lot
Prince.
of people. Fresh Prince, the same thing. But now you get into, it's not just comedy. It's like, this is marketed specifically for a black audience, specifically for this audience. It's like, no, dude, you got the formula all wrong. The Cosby Show, for Christ's sakes. I mean, come on. Dude, that's the whitest show on television that's probably ever been put out. But it's just, I don't know. I guess they're trying to do niche things, and instead of, let's just appeal to everyone. Let's just make a genuinely funny, good story and just put it out there. We don't have to be divisive. We don't have to be inclusive, woke inclusive, not like Roger was saying.
That's very racist, and all the other derogatory terms that I can throw at you for you to say that we don't have to be inclusive. Somebody's going to get left out, Luke, and we can't leave anybody out. But so that goes back to, right, so let's take comedy. Why was comedy so good in the 70s and the 80s and the early 90s? Because there were no holds barred. Your Richard Pryors, your Eddie Murphys, they didn't try and cater and to one demographic. It was, hey man, everybody's fair game. Everybody's getting made fun of. You go to see Sam Kinison, everybody's getting made fun of. George Carlin, everybody's getting made fun of. And now, again, the great comics, that are out there now. And I'll use Chappelle because he's the one. I think he's maybe the loudest. When it comes to, especially, the alphabet folks. You can't cancel that dude. He's got FU money, and you can't cancel him. Same thing with Rogan. When they tried to cancel Joe Rogan, when he had the doctor on and stuff like that, you can't cancel Joe Rogan. He's got FU money. He has the most popular podcast in the world, next to C3. You cannot cancel that dude. Right? So come on, catch
That's got to be the funniest thing that Josh. That's the funniest thing Josh has said in the how many years we've been on the show?
Too many.
Yeah,
I almost had beer come out my nose there.
I just wanted to see if y'all were paying. I just want to see if y'all were paying attention. But that's it. You can't, dude. Could you imagine coming out with the Simpsons today, like the old Simpsons, not the new Simpsons? They tried to release some, later on that was like it was a little PC. You can't do that.
Hey, the Simpsons are the cartoon version of 1984, man. Very prophetic.
dude.
Oh yeah. Oh no, dude. A lot of the things the Simpsons covered and South Park too. It's like, oh, this is comedy. Oh no. And oh, it came to
True.
fruition. Well, it came to fruition, so it's not funny anymore. It's like Luke says about parody. You can't do parody anymore because
No, it's
it's
not. It
it's
comes
all
true.
reality now.
Have you guys seen the side by side with the Simpsons? Yeah, I don't remember what year it was. It was like 2000, whatever, 4 or 5, where in the Simpsons, Trump was running for president, and he comes down the escalator, the gold escalator, and he announces
Yeah.
it, and they put a side by side of how it actually happened. It's almost frame for frame, and it's like, how in the hell did they do that? I mean, wow, it was. I would argue though, Josh, and I don't think I'm not arguing against you. I would argue in general that comedy, stand up comedy, is making a comeback. And that's with
Yeah. That's
Chappelle,
good.
Joe Rogan, some of the other lower names out there. They're escaping me, but man, Chappelle's last few specials on Netflix, wow. This last one was good. The one before that, unbelievable. It's one of the best things I've ever seen, and I'm including my favorite comedian's George Carlin. I'm including Carlin in that. I mean, it's one of the best things I've ever seen done live because he's a storyteller and he's irreverent, but at the same time, he brings it back to respect, especially in the episode or the one I'm talking about. It's all about respect, and we're all the same. That's why Chappelle's show, dude. Chappelle's show did more to normalize race relations in this country since Martin Luther King. I'm telling you. And then what happened to it? It went away. It had 2 seasons and it went away. And it was having us all laugh at each other. It made fun of white people. It made fun of black people, Hispanic, everyone. No one was off limits. And we laughed at each other. And we laughed at each other arm in arm. It was great. And it's gone.
Yeah. No, the 2 dudes on SNL, and I can't remember, one of them's Colin and the other guy, Shay, right? Where they write jokes for the other one to tell.
Oh, yeah.
Those are actually funny.
Yeah.
You see their clips?
Yes.
Those
yes,
dudes
they
are
funny.
actually, those dudes are actually funny. And it's like, I know a couple of people who only watch Saturday Night Live to see Colin and Shay. That's the only reason they watch it. And a lot of times they won't even watch it when it comes out. They'll catch those clips on YouTube or a reel on Instagram afterwards. And it's like, there's your recipe right there. It's still there. Like, just stop worrying about everybody's feelings and just let comedy happen because it's funny. And that goes back to the sitcom thing that Roger was talking about. You see Cheers. Hey, I know that guy. Like, I know a guy exactly like that. It's let comedy happen. The best sitcoms were about things that happen in day-to-day life, real things that happen to people in day-to-day life. I don't, when you're talking Big Bang Theory and Friends, I don't know anybody like that. None whatsoever. And I don't.
Oh, Friends.
And Friends is so dumb. It was absolutely, it was the worst. And people are like, I mean, you got some diehard followers out there anyway. But those sitcoms, it was because that incident happened. That same thing happened to me. To somebody I know. It happened to, somebody like that I know somebody like that. It's just, there's your recipe. It's always been there. People just chose to, be offended by everything. And then we had to soften everything. And, dude, George Carlin, if he didn't have FU money today, and he was alive, dude, he'd be canceled in 30 seconds. Sam Kinison, dude, one of my favorite Sam Kinison things is, how he's going to fix world hunger. Like, it was the best. Dude, he'd be canceled in 20 seconds.
Lenny Bruce, man. They tried to cancel those dudes. They tried to cancel Lenny Bruce. They tried to cancel George Carlin. Those dudes are getting arrested all the time. Sam Kinison, not so much.
Steve Harvey, he came out with an interview. It's been a couple years ago now, and he was talking about Dave Chappelle specifically. And I can't remember. I have to look it up. I have to Google it to find out. But he was like, it's the revenue stream and how they earn their money. So like Dave Chappelle owns all of his stuff. Like he owns every bit. He produces it. So they're like, he's like, hey, Dave Chappelle can go out there and say F you to the world and nobody can do anything about it. All they can do is either air his stuff or not. And if you air it, ad money goes through the roof. But I think and again, I'm not familiar enough with how these folks are paid, but I guess most comedians aren't like that. The revenue stream isn't like that. I think it's a lot more of a record label type thing where you don't necessarily get all that money. Your manager, however that works, your agency gets it. And so they have a lot more control over where you go, what you say, what you do. And hopefully that model, whatever that model is for Dave Chappelle, it'll be interesting to Google it to see if that's making its way around, and maybe that's why comedy's starting to come back a little bit more.
The roast of Tom Brady, there was some great lines in there, and there were some that I was like, "Oh damn!" Like I didn't know it was live, but it was like, "Ooh!" Like I'm surprised they have it edited this out, or because it was
Hey,
live, but it wasn't live.
they caused the breakup of his ex-wife and the boyfriend.
Oh yeah, dude. There was some
Dude.
great There were some great lines in there. And I think some of those comics that were in there, and I can't remember the dude's name, but the guy who toward the end, man, I can't remember his name, man, but
Bert
he told
Kreischer?
Kim
Was
Kardashian.
it Bert Kreischer?
No, it wasn't Bert. It was the other guy. This guy made fun of Bert, but he told Kim Kardashian, he was like, "You got more public beef than Drake and Lamar." Right? So I mean, it was legit.
Roger, have you watched that?
I've caught bits and pieces of
Oh
it,
my
and then
God.
I caught more of it when they were saying that the whole breakup of the ex-wife was like, it was the roast, and they were like, the things that were coming out and putting that dude in the limelight. They're like, yeah, you're not ready for this.
Oh my
Yeah.
God.
No, dude, it was brutal. Like it was absolutely brutal. But it was the same guy who was like, it was like, "Hey, Kevin Hart's, he's been standing on the stool all night long. It's the same stool that Aaron Hernandez kicked out from under him."
Oh, yes. God, man.
That
It was
guy.
so brutal.
I was like,
But
that dude.
a lot of that
That
stuff is there's some truth to it, right? I mean, again, going back to
Yeah,
sitcoms and
that's what
things like
makes it funny.
that's what makes it funny. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
edgy.
that's what makes it so good, man. It was bad.
Dude,
Like it was legit, man.
I got 20 minutes into it and I was texting you guys like, I wasn't ready for this. Yeah, and I liked it, but I was like, holy cow, man, this is just, and I like seeing stuff like that because it's like, what are they gonna say next? And then it surpasses what you could even imagine. I'm like, man, like everybody can hate Tom Brady, but man, the courage to sit there, good God, man, nothing was off limits. Nothing.
Nothing. Except for what's his name, who owns the Patriots, the old guy.
Oh, Robert Kraft.
Oh yeah, he's like, don't ever say that, or don't ever have to say that again.
Don't ever do that again. Yeah, man, that one.
Look,
Brady got up. That was off limits. But other than that, yeah, dude, nothing was off limits, and that was what made it funny, and it was true. Which again, coupled with not being off limits, that's what made it funny.
Yeah.
Yep. Did you guys hear his Hall of Fame speech?
Uh-uh.
He was inducted. Dude, that's a good listen, man.
Yeah, he's saying do hard things, right?
And that's what it was. I sat there and again, I didn't hear the whole thing because I'm not a big Brady fan or whatever. And so heard some of the snippets. But basically, he's like, yeah, man. He's like, it's hard because we all look at athletes and we're like, man, only if I was 6'6" or 6'8", or if I had this athletic ability, or if I had that, or whatever, I'd be doing this and that. And you get a guy like Tom Brady, who arguably, probably the best quarterback that's ever, played in the NFL. And to hear him get up there, I'm like, hey, man, it's freaking hard work. He's like, to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning to go work out while your buddies are sleeping in, to go do 2-a-days while your homies are out at the beach, it's like, hey, man, it is a grind. Like life is hard. So, especially for our younger folks out there. Do we have younger folks? Your kids don't even listen to this stuff. Neither mine, but it's for the younger folks out there. It's like, man, if we have any, listen to it because it's legit, man. I mean, it's just like, hey, man, life is hard, dude. And, we've all heard, different anecdotes about it and this and that, but it's like, you just got to go out and get it. You got to grind and get it, man. Listen to it.
That was a Marine recruiting slogan for a while. They're like, why there's not a line at the Marine recruiter's office? Because what we do is hard. Said there's a line at the welfare office because that's easy. Dude, it was legit, man. You're like, damn. It's like kind of hard to argue with that, right? That was a Marine. This was back in this is back in probably the early 2000s, something. And they were like, yeah, because what we do is hard. The line at the welfare office, there's a line there because that's easy. If you don't want hard, don't knock on our door. But that's the way recruiting, like that's what it should be. It's like, nah, man, but once you earn that globe and anchor, you were, it's you earned it. Did you see where the Navy is not going to kick people out of the Navy if they fail 2 PFTs in a row?
Well, they can't.
They can't. The numbers are so down. Yeah.
And and we've seen this. I know we're running towards the end here, but we've talked about this several times. It's the you've had this wokeness that's happened, across every aspect, every institution of our country, right? And it's like, well, man, I don't understand why, I don't understand why numbers are down. Why can't we keep people? Why can't we retain people? Why can't we recruit people? And this and that. It's like, hey, man, because it's no longer hardcore anymore. I mean, you've grown to become very, very soft, right? You have lack of leadership. Even when I see like the Army WTF, on the Facebook page, I'm like, man, you people bitch about a lot. Now, don't get me wrong. I know we all did as Joes, and hey, you want a complaining Joe, right? Because a complaining Joe is probably a happy Joe, whatever. And you don't want to be idle necessarily, but you just hear it's like, man, this is just like, this is not good. And when you see outside of the military how soft it, our kids have become, a lot of our kids and young adults, dude, I saw something the other day talking about like 20% of young adults that went to their first job interview, like post college, took their parents with them.
Oh yeah.
It was like 19%. What? I mean, dude, can you fathom so I love my kids. I'm going to go off on a tangent here. I love my kids, right? Love them to death. I'm glad they're home. I'm glad they stay with me. They are a bunch of assholes. It's the, man, I love my kids. It's the, today was a rough day, man. I get up and I come out and I'm like, hey, you know what? I'm not a big yogurt eater. I found this Greek yogurt. It's fat-free, sugar-free. It's got like 15 grams of protein. Nobody in the house eats yogurt, right? So I buy a case of it from Costco. I throw it in the fridge. I've been eating one a day. I'm getting a little hungry because I wait till last minute to eat. I go grab my yogurt. I'm like, where are all my yogurts at? It's like, well, my boy is, he decided that he was going to eat a yogurt and he dropped a yogurt. So it busted open. Couldn't eat that one. And because he dropped that one, he grabbed another one to eat and then took another one with him to work. So I'm like, all right, whatever, dude. So then, I go to the, I go, I'm getting me a soda water. So I have a soda water dispenser. It's a tap. And when I run out, it takes 2 to 3 days to charge that. So I buy a case of soda water and I put a couple in the fridge. And that way, when it runs out and it's charging, I go grab a soda water out of the fridge. Go to the soda water, tap is out. Not a problem. Recharge it. I'll go grab one in the fridge. Nope. Kids drank all that shit. It's all gone. So then finally, I go to my garbage disposal and, or I go to the sink and I'm pulling stuff out. Now we throw things in the sink. We have a dishwasher and we got the little net guard thing or whatever, keeping, stuff from going down into the garbage disposal area. But we don't throw small things down in there because they manage to whittle their way underneath it and get clogged in. So long story short, clogs the garbage disposal. I spent a couple hours this morning taking apart my garbage disposal to get the little knife covering thing out. I'm like, hey, I got the perfect tool for this. I'll go out and I have some really long pliers, needle nose pliers that you grab. I'm like, hey, shove it in there, I'll grab it, whatever. In the garage, can't find them. And my son comes home from work at 4:30 and, we start talking a little bit. And he's like, Dad, you sound like you had a rough day. I'm like, yeah, man, you have no idea. I said, and then my wife speaks up. She's like, yeah, he had to take apart the garbage disposal. I said, yeah. When I couldn't find my pliers, I was like, damn it, Caleb. My son's name was like, yeah, my pliers are probably at his buddy's house, because he always borrows my tools and he takes them to his buddy's house and he leaves them there. And my son's like, yeah, I wonder where those pliers went to because I haven't seen them in months.
What's funny, Roger, it wasn't just the yogurt. He went off on a tangent and listed like 8 things that they had eaten and drank him out of house and home. And then about an hour before we're going to record tonight, Roger, and I put it together right after I put the message or put the phone down. He's like, yeah, I'm making a Costco run. I might be a little late to recording. And I put, Roger's going to Costco. And then I remembered all the stuff he doesn't have anymore. I was like, he's got to research.
Well, it's funny because I'm in the middle right now, right? Like Luke has gone through all this stuff. So he just gets to sit back and he gets to chuckle and like, yeah, I remember those days. I remember him bitching about the thermostat and this and that, putting lock boxes on it. I mean, so, he's beyond all this. I am in the middle of it. And Josh, this is what you get to deal with here in 4, 5, 6 years. So
I'm dealing with it now.
Take notes,
man.
brother. Take notes.
I'm dealing with it now. So it's summer, right? It's summer at the Josh house, and our oldest finished up her first year of college. And the younger two are getting ready to finish up high school. But it's summer, so the pantry gets raided every day, by a swarm of locusts because they're home all day and they're just grazing. They're grazing, dude. They're grazing like they're like 20 head of
That's
cattle.
a good term. That's a good term. Grazing.
That's all they
Yep.
do. They graze all day, and it's like, look. But you go by, you do that Costco run, you do that Harris Teeter run, and the next thing you know, dude, within 48 hours, you're like, it's all gone because they're home all day grazing. And so, yeah, man, dude, we're in it too.
Yeah,
we're in it too, man.
We're in a situation, we got to close out, but we're in a situation where we still shop as if there's still two kids in the house. So therefore, our refrigerators are packed, our freezers packed, our pantry is packed. Like, we got too much food around here. And I just chalk it up to, well, I'm a survivalist now, I guess. I got enough food for at least a couple months. But yeah, so I gotta grow out of that shopping for 4. So, I guess I'll close out because we got nothing left. Real quick, Virginia Republicans just nominated a legal refugee from Vietnam, turned Naval Academy graduate, and retired Navy captain to be their Republican nominee for Senate. So he won't win because it's Virginia. But anybody who says that we're xenophobic and whatever, we don't believe in immigration, I want that guy as my representative. I want that guy. So whatever. I think that's good news. I think that's the way the country's heading. I think you're going to see a lot more Republicans like that guy in the next couple decades. It's a good one tonight, y'all. We went a little bit over for Ryan. Appreciate y'all listening. And till next time, keep your canteen cups full and tightly secured.